In a small suburban town nestled between vast fields and gentle slopes, there lived a young girl named Lily. Her family was well respected in their community, a loving unit where laughter often filled the air and warmth was a constant presence. But despite all the love that Lily received from her parents, there was one thing that set her apart from everyone else: her skin. Lily had always been different from her brother, Mark, and her younger sister, Emma. While Mark and Emma inherited their parents' fair skin, Lily's complexion was deep, dark, and rich, like a polished mahogany wood that absorbed the warmth of the sun. As a child, she never understood the significance of this difference. She didn't see herself as different from her siblings, and she certainly didn't think her skin was something to be ashamed of. However, from the moment she began to socialize with others outside the family, Lily started to sense that something about her skin made her unique in a way that others saw as negative. When friends of her parents came over to visit, they would smile awkwardly and look at Lily in a puzzled way. "She doesn't look like your daughter at all," they would comment, half laughing. "Did she change in the hospital?" Her parents, kind and protective, would always try to dismiss the remarks, brushing them off with a nervous laugh. "Of course she's ours. All three of them are our children, aren't they?" her father would say with a reassuring smile. But Lily could see the discomfort in their eyes. She could feel the weight of their silence, as though they too were unsure about the differences between their children. As she grew older, Lily began to internalize the comments. Why was she different? What had caused her to be born this way? She would lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, and ask herself these questions repeatedly. Her siblings, who once loved her without hesitation, now became distant. Mark, the older brother who had always been her protector, began to tease her when they fought, calling her black in a mocking tone. "You're so black, Lily, I can't even see you in the dark." Mark would laugh, and Emma would join in, calling her chocolate or tar in a tone that no longer felt playful. Lily didn't know how to respond to these remarks. She felt small and insignificant, like a dark cloud on a sunny day. Her siblings' words no longer felt like teasing. They felt like a judgment. It was as if her very existence, her skin, was a burden to them. When she tried to stand up for herself, her voice always faltered, as though her own words were not enough to defend the one thing that made her who she was. At school, the bullying only intensified. The other children, who seemed so innocent and carefree, weren't any kinder than her family had been. It was as though her skin was the first thing they noticed, and the only thing that defined her. Some children would laugh and call her black, and others would taunt her with names that reminded her of how different she was. Every day, Lily would go to school feeling like an outsider, wishing she could somehow blend in with the crowd and escape the attention her skin attracted. The pain was unbearable. At first, she tried to ignore the insults, hoping that if she ignored them, they would eventually stop. But as the years went on, she became more withdrawn. She no longer participated in class discussions, and she avoided eye contact with her peers. She began to shrink inside, her heart heavy with the fear of rejection. Her once radiant smile faded, and the spark of her youthful energy dimmed. The world around her felt hostile and unwelcoming, and she couldn't find a way to break free from the chains of insecurity that had been placed on her. One day, during the preparations for the school's annual fair, Lily's worst fears came true. The teacher had announced that there would be a tableau, a kind of play, for the fair, and she needed volunteers to take on different roles. The students were buzzing with excitement, eagerly suggesting roles for themselves. But then, one girl in the class, a popular girl named Jessica, turned toward Lily with a mischievous grin. "You should be the witch, Lily," Jessica said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "With your dark skin, you'll be perfect for it. Everyone will think you're a natural." The other girls around her giggled, clearly amused by the idea. "Yeah, Lily, you'll make a great witch," another girl chimed in. "You're practically made for it." Lily felt a lump form in her throat, and her chest tightened. The pain of hearing the girls make fun of her was too much to bear. For so long, she had tried to keep her head down, to avoid standing out, but now it felt as though her skin had become her only defining feature. The comment stung like nothing else had before. To them, her skin wasn't beautiful or unique. It was an inconvenience, and they had turned it into a joke. She tried to hide the tears that were threatening to spill from her eyes, but it was impossible. With a quick and awkward motion, she excused herself from the group and ran out of the room. Her heart was pounding, her body trembling with the weight of the humiliation. She didn't know where she was going, but she needed to get away. She needed to escape the laughter, the judgment, the cruel words. In her panic, Lily found herself standing in front of the principal's office. Without thinking, she knocked on the door, hoping that someone, anyone, would understand her pain. The door opened, and Mrs. Thompson, the kind and understanding principal, greeted her with a warm smile. She asked him to sit down. When Lily sat down, she said with a smile, "Lily, what's the matter?" she asked, sensing that something was wrong. Lily couldn't hold it in any more. With trembling hands and weeping eyes, she explained everything: how the girls had called her the witch, how they had laughed at her, and how, for so long, she had felt like an outsider because of her skin. "I don't want to be the witch," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't want to be different. Why does everyone always make fun of me?" Mrs. Thompson listened carefully, her face full of sympathy. When Lily had finished, the principal took a deep breath. She put a glass of water in front of Lily and signaled her to drink. Lily picked up the glass of water and, after taking a few sips, put it back on the table. Mrs. Thompson placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lily, I know it's hard," she said softly. "But you have to remember something very important. You are not defined by the color of your skin. It's just a part of who you are. Being the witch is just a role in a play. It doesn't mean anything bad about you. but Lily couldn't hear it. She had heard similar words before, from her parents, from teachers, from others who had tried to comfort her. It didn't matter. The world was still the same. She was still the girl with dark skin, and she still didn't fit in. "I don't want to be just a role," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I want to be seen for who I am, not just for my skin." Mrs. Thompson looked at her with understanding. "I know, Lily, but don't let others define you. You are much more than what they say." But Lily wasn't ready to hear those words. She left the office feeling more isolated than ever before. She didn't feel like going to school anymore. She didn't feel like facing the world. She retreated further into herself, spending most of her days alone in her room, where no one could see her. The loneliness became a constant companion, and the silence became her solace. Time passed, and her siblings, Mark and Emma, grew older. Mark moved away to college, and Emma got married to a man named Daniel, who treated her like a queen. Lily, however, remained in the background, invisible to the world. No one paid attention to her anymore. She watched as her siblings built their own lives, their own families, while she remained stagnant in her own quiet existence. Men came and went, but none of them ever saw her as someone worth staying for. She was always too dark for them. They would smile politely and compliment her on her personality, but when it came to something more serious, they would fade away. Lily began to believe that she would never find love, not because she wasn't worthy, but because her skin was something that others couldn't accept. But life, as it often does, has a way of surprising us. One evening, while she was walking through the park, she met a man named James. He was in his late 30s, with graying hair and a quiet demeanor. They started talking, and over time, they developed a friendship based on shared experiences of loneliness. James had spent most of his life taking care of his siblings after the death of his parents, sacrificing his own dreams for the sake of others. Now, he found himself alone, with no one to share his life with. They spent hours talking, sharing their stories, their pain, and their hopes. James listened to Lily's struggles with a depth of understanding that no one else had ever shown her. He didn't care about her skin. He cared about her heart. One evening, as they sat on a bench overlooking the lake, James turned to her. "Lily, I've been thinking. We've both spent so much time alone. Maybe we could support each other. Maybe we could marry. What do you think about this?" Lily was taken aback. She hadn't expected this. He was much older than her, and the idea of marrying someone who wasn't her age felt strange. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the same loneliness, the same yearning that she had carried with her for so long. Maybe it wasn't about age or skin. Maybe it was about finding someone who understood, someone who could be a companion through the ups and downs of life. He was the first man to enter her life. Neither had Lily been proposed to before, nor did Lily hope to be proposed to. After a long pause, Lily nodded. Maybe that could work, and so they married. It wasn't a grand romance, but it was real. It was a partnership built on understanding, shared pain, and mutual respect. Together, they faced the world, hand in hand. Years later, when Lily gave birth to a daughter, she was filled with both joy and fear. She gazed down at the tiny girl in her arms, feeling the weight of responsibility for her. She knew that her daughter, like her, would face the same challenges. She would feel the sting of being different, the hurt of rejection. But Lily made a vow to herself and to her daughter. She would never let anyone tell her daughter that she wasn't beautiful because of her skin. She would teach her to love herself, to see the beauty that lay within her, and to understand that her worth was never defined by the color of her skin. As she looked down at her daughter, Lily whispered, "You are beautiful, my love. You are perfect just the way you are." And so, Lily began a new chapter in her life. One where love, understanding, and acceptance flourished. She had found peace, not through the validation of others, but through her own acceptance of herself. And with that peace, she was able to give her daughter the love and security that she had always longed for.